$944 a month. That is the average monthly payment this past spring on a new car bought by someone trading in a car they still owed money on, who rolled what was left of that old loan into the new one. The industry average that same quarter was $777, but the gap is not the interesting part. Here is the interesting part. Some of those buyers, on the day they signed, already owed more than the car was worth. Not later. Not after a bad year. On day one. And nothing about that is unusual anymore. So let's take that table apart. Not the sales tactics, the arithmetic. 3 things. How the monthly payment became the unit that cars are priced in. How far the one dial that controls it can actually be turned. And how a debt gets from one car into the next one. I am not going to tell you what to buy, or how long to finance, or whether now is a good time. That is not what this channel does. What I want is for the shape of the thing to be visible, because the shape is not complicated. It is just never laid out in one place. Almost every car conversation in America starts with the same question. What are you looking to pay a month? The Federal Trade Commission ran a study where researchers sat down with car buyers and walked through their actual purchases in detail. What they found was consistent. People came in with a monthly payment budget in mind. They negotiated hard to get the payment inside that budget. And some of them, in the researchers' words, had little or no concern for the out-the-door price of the car, or for the other financing terms. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is the point where a lot of videos start calling people foolish. They are not being foolish. Think about what a monthly payment actually is. It is the only number in the entire transaction that lines up with the number you already know, which is what lands in your account every 2 weeks. Total price does not line up with anything. Total interest is a number you will meet in 5 years. The payment is the only one you can check against your real life today. I do this too. When I think about whether I can afford something, I convert it into a monthly number, because that is the unit my life is denominated in. So the behavior is rational, but it has a consequence, and there is real research on exactly this. 3 economists, Bronson Argyle, Taylor Nadald, and Christopher Palmer, published a paper in the Review of Financial Studies looking at 500,000 used car loans. They used the fact that different lenders offer different contract terms at different cutoffs, which lets you see how borrowers actually respond. What they found is the whole story in one sentence. Demand was more sensitive to the length of the loan than to the interest rate. That lands differently when you hear it as a business fact rather than a personal one. If your customers respond strongly to term and weakly to rate, then the profitable thing to do is compete on term. They found 2 other things worth knowing. Monthly payments bunch at round numbers. 200, 300, 400. People are not solving an optimization problem. They are using a budgeting rule, and the round numbers are where the rule lives. And when a lower payment freed up money, a lot of borrowers did not pocket it. They spent it on a bigger loan. So here's the asymmetry, and it is not a moral failing on anyone's part. You are managing a payment. The other side of the table is managing a total. Same contract, 2 different units. Now, if the payment is the number that has to come down, there are only a few ways to bring it down. You can lower the price of the car. Nobody at that table wants that. You can lower the interest rate, mostly out of everyone's hands. Or you can stretch the loan. Let me show you what stretching does, with real average numbers rather than made-up ones. In the first quarter of this year, Experian reported that the average new car loan in America was $43,925 at an average rate of 6.39%. Run that at 4 years. The payment is $1,039 a month. Over the life of the loan, you pay $5,969 in interest. Now run the exact same loan at 7 years. The payment drops to $650, $390 a month lower. That is a real difference. That is groceries. And the interest goes from $5,969 to $10,669. Same car, same price, same rate, $4,700 more for the privilege of paying slower. In percentage terms, the payment fell by about 37%, and the interest rose by about 79%. I want to be precise about what happened there, because it is easy to say the payment went down. The payment did not go down. The payment got moved. It got moved into months that were not in the conversation. Because when someone asks what you want to pay, they are asking about a month, and the months out at year 6 and year 7 do not have a voice at that table. And this is not a hypothetical. Experience number for the average new car loan term is now about 69.5 months, nearly 6 years. More than a third of new car loans, about 35.5%, now run longer than 6 years. A year earlier, that share was under 31%. Here is the part that surprised me, because I assumed this was recent. It is not. Car loans used to be short, traditionally around 24 months, and generally not longer than 36. The Federal Reserve tracked this for decades in a data series on new car loan maturities. In 1971, the average was about 35 months. By 2010, it had passed 62 months. The series shows a drift in one direction across 40 years, through recessions and booms and every kind of interest rate environment. Why did it start? In the early 1980s, leasing got popular. Leasing was attractive because it required no down payment and produced a lower monthly payment. Lenders who were selling loans had to compete with that. And the way you compete with a lower monthly payment is by offering a lower monthly payment. So 48 months became normal, then 60, then 72. There was one moment that shows the pattern especially clearly. In the week after September 11, 2001, General Motors launched a program called Keep America Rolling, 0% financing, on terms of 36, 48, and 60 months. It was framed as an emergency measure for an economy that had frozen. It worked. Buyers came back into showrooms that October. The fourth quarter surge made 2001 the second best sales year in GM's history. And then it did not stop. Cheap financing went from being the thing you do in an emergency to being the thing you do whenever sales get slow. The rest of the industry matched it. What had been a rescue became a standing feature of how cars are sold. That is what a dial getting turned looks like from far away. Not one decision, 1,000 reasonable ones, all pushing the same direction, because on any given afternoon, a longer loan is the answer that lets the deal close. The dial is now near the end of its travel, which brings us to the problem. The loan got longer, the car did not. A car and a car loan are both running clocks, and the clocks are not synchronized. The car's clock is depreciation. According to an analysis of hundreds of thousands of used listings this year, the average vehicle loses about 41.8% of its value over 5 years. That varies enormously. Trucks and hybrids hold value best, around 34 to 35% lost. Electric vehicles lose the most, about 57%. The loan's clock is amortization. In the early part of a loan, a larger share of each payment goes to interest, and the balance comes down slowly. Stretch the term and you flatten that curve further, because you are paying less principal each month by design. That is the mechanism that made the payment smaller. The gap between those two clocks is negative equity, owing more than the thing is worth. Now, here's where I have to stop and tell you what I am not going to do. I am not going to give you a number for how many months it takes to get back above water. I tried to build that. I cannot build it honestly. That number depends almost entirely on how fast a car loses value in its first year, and when you go looking for that figure, the answer is not one number. Reputable sources put it anywhere from 10 to 35% depending on the vehicle and the year and the method. I could have picked a middle value and drawn you a confident chart. It would have looked authoritative. It would also have been a guess wearing a suit. But there is one thing in all of this that needs no model at all. It is subtraction. In the second quarter of this year, Edmunds reported that 29.6% of trade-ins toward a new vehicle carried negative equity. Let me be accurate about that number, because it has been reported in some places as a record, and it is not. In the second quarter of 2020, the figure was 37.2%. Higher. What 29.6% actually is the highest second quarter reading since then. The amount, though, the amount is a record. The average underwater trade in this spring carried $6,884 of negative equity, the highest for a second quarter that Edmunds has on record. And in the first quarter, 26% of underwater trade-ins carried more than $10,000 of rolled over debt. 9.3% carried more than $15,000. Jessica Caldwell, who runs Insights at Edmunds, put the cause plainly. Buyers who financed at 2022's peak prices are starting to come back to trade in, and they are bringing thousands of dollars in old debt with them. The average trade in this quarter was 4 years old. 4 years. which is about when a 6 or 7 year loan is still nowhere near paid off, and life has moved on anyway. The car does not know how long the loan was. Families grow, jobs change, transmissions fail. So now do the subtraction. Edmund says buyers who rolled negative equity into a new purchase financed, on average, $55,970. Kelley Blue Book says the average new vehicle in June sold for $49,758. $55,970 against $49,758. That is $6,212 of loan with no car underneath it on the first day before anyone is driven anywhere. No depreciation assumption required. No forecast. Just one number minus the other. The old debt did not get paid off. It changed vehicles. And it starts earning interest again. On a fresh clock. Edmunds projects that buyers rolling negative equity will pay about $16,270 in interest over the life of that loan, against $9,811 for the average new vehicle buyer, roughly $6,500 more, for a car that is nominally the same car. There is a headline going around right now, and it is true, and it is also easy to misread. Fitch Ratings tracks how many subprime auto loans are at least 60 days late. In February, that figure was 6.8%. That is the highest reading since Fitch started tracking it in the early 1990s. 32 years. Now let me put the other half next to it, because a channel that only tells you the scary half is not being useful. That number is subprime. It is not everyone. Across all auto loans, the New York Fed's measure of how many accounts newly fell 90 days behind was 2.97% in the first quarter. A year earlier, it was 2.94%. Essentially flat. So the picture is not a market collapsing. The picture is a market splitting. Total auto debt is $1.69 trillion, and most of it is being paid on schedule by people with cushion. The strain is concentrated in the part of the market with the least room to absorb anything. And in that part, it is at a level nobody currently working in the industry has seen. One more figure, and I want to flag exactly how old it is. In 2024, about 1.73 million vehicles were repossessed, the most since 2009. I would like to give you last year's number. I looked. What exists publicly are forecasts, not a final count, and I am not going to read you a forecast as though it were a fact. Next week, on August 11th, the New York Fed publishes its household debt report for the second quarter. If you go looking at it, the number that carries the most information is not the total balance, which mostly tracks what cars cost. It is the flow, which is the share of accounts newly falling behind that quarter. Balances tell you how big the market is. Flow tells you how it is doing. I am not going to predict what it says. It comes out in 5 days, and neither of us has to guess. Back to the table. What are you looking to pay a month? I have thought about this a lot while making this video, and I have landed somewhere that surprised me. That question is not a trick. It is a real question, and it deserves a real answer. Because a payment you cannot make is a genuine emergency, and a payment you can make is not. The problem is narrower than that, and it is structural. That question asks about one dimension. The contract has two. There is how much, and there is how long. And only one of them gets said out loud, written on the board, circled, and agreed to. The monthly payment tells you about this month. The term tells you how long this month keeps happening. Both numbers are in the paperwork. Both are true. They just do not get the same volume. So the next time you hear that a new record was set in car debt, you will know what it is actually made of. It is not made of people being reckless. It is made of a price quoted in months, a dial that only turns one way, and two clocks that were never set to the same time. Educational only, not financial advice.